And we are live.
Yay!
Joining me today on the Closing Act Music and Entertainment program, I have a very special guest, John Henry Soto, an accomplished filmmaker. He's a talk show host, and he's here today to talk about his work as a podcaster, his management company JHS, and also his filmmaking career as well. And John, thank you for joining me today on the program.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Yes, and I love your quote, and is to create with a loving purpose impacts the world in the greatest way imaginable. Tell us about that.
Well, I always feel that, and this has been since I was young, that creating is always for me the highest level of being alive, the highest thing that you can feel closest to God and whatever spirituality that someone wants to to feel. For me, it's like that's the biggest thing. And if you're creating sincerely and you're creating in that loving purpose with, there's nothing better than that. There's nothing that can impact the world greater than if you're able to come from a place of sincerity with your creation and really realizing that you were put here for that reason. And sometimes it takes a long time to get there, and sometimes I meet young people now, young artists, and they already know they're there. And I'll meet older, people my age that are just kind of realizing it and getting there themselves. And so it doesn't matter, when you get there, as long as you can get there. For me, that's a really important thing.
I feel your positive energy.
Oh, good.
We're doing this virtually, but where do you get your positive mindset?
It came from, I grew up in a really violent environment, not in my household, but I grew up in the South Bronx during the rough periods of the 80s, and there was a lot of drugs and crime and violence, violent crimes. And so I got to experience the worst of humanity, unfortunately, as a young person. And for me, making it out, there was a kind of a joke that people used to. I mean, it's not really much of a joke, but we had a thing that if you made it to the age of 20, that you survived, that you made it.
Hmm.
But making it to 20 was very rare where I grew up. And I can name 20 friends that were taken, either violence or drugs or prison or whatever, through, in that environment. So, um, when I made it to 20, and I was 20,
Mhm.
I thought, oh, okay, and then I kept going and I kept doing things. And then I just realized, I'm here for a reason. I'm here now. I can't live my life being afraid of being taken out or going away or dying or whatever. I believe in God, and I'm just gonna keep going, and I'm gonna have a positive outlook. And so people that meet me, they'll same kind of thing is like, how do you stay positive, or how do you, it's not that I'm staying positive. It's just that this is the way I actually now am. I get angry like everyone. I can get upset. I'm a human being, obviously, so if I'm driving and I'm stuck in traffic, well, I know it's a little aggravating, but it doesn't consume me.
Hmm.
It's as soon as whatever is done, I get to where I'm going. I'm not thinking about the traffic anymore. I'm not thinking about past things because I'm looking forward. As 99.99% of the time, I'm looking forward. So it's a mindset. You have to kind of decide that you don't want to be angry anymore. You have to decide that you want to be able to live a positive life. When you make that decision and you truly make the decision, then your life will change and it'll be incredible. And I made that decision as a youth, and
Hmm.
I always made my way by just trying to find the positive in people and then just trying to gravitate towards positive situations and trying to stay away from, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, I don't, I never got into those things, um, and that to me was a big important thing for me.
Hmm. Was there like a pivotal moment? Like, do you remember, as a youth, Okay, I was it a book that you read, or was it someone that, seeing your friends or your people you know? Can you take us there
Yeah,
and
there was definitely a pivotal moment, and I remember, and I talk about it often whenever I'm speaking, that there was a moment I had witnessed, and I won't talk about the actual thing that I witnessed, but I had witnessed something that was pretty graphic and violent wise in growing up. And I remember I was standing in the corner. I was 18 years old, and I was standing in the corner, and it was Bryan Avenue and 167th Street in the South Bronx. And I remember we were all hanging out, and it was November, and it was freezing cold.
hmm,
And my building was right across the street there, and I was just hanging out with the boys, hanging out, just I don't know what I was doing. I wasn't doing anything. I was and I remember I looked at my house, and I remember at that moment I said, I'm done. I don't want to go. I don't want to be in this corner just hanging out, just not doing anything, and I had some good friends that till this day are still my good friends, but
mhm,
I just did not want to be there in that corner. And I remember I said, all right, I'll see you guys later. And I left, and it was early, and one guy was like, well, it's only 9 o'clock. And I was like, yeah, I'll see you guys later. And I left, and I never went back. When I went back 30 something years later, because
wow.
I was shooting a pilot for a TV show that didn't go, but it was a pilot. And I went to a grocery store where they shot it, and it was right in that neighborhood. And that was when I went back to that neighborhood and I just didn't, I went back, once in a while I would visit a friend in passing, but I just stayed away from that community overall. And that was a pivotal moment for me, because
Mhm.
I witnessed this horrible thing, and I just thought, we're all here. We are just like nothing, and I thought, gosh, this is so sad that this happened. We all experienced it, but yet here we are, not really trying to make something of ourselves or trying to move forward. And I thought that was kind of tragic. So I think that moment for me was a pivotal moment that I talk about, because I remember consciously walking away. I
Mhm.
remember thinking, this is it for me, and that was that one moment.
Yes, and thank you for sharing, John. And I think was it you have creative genes. I mean, you you are a filmmaker, an actor, right? And you have your own agency and music. Do you think by being so creative, do you think this helped you? Like it just being that creativeness in you?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it kept me out of the streets. My guitar kept me home. And I was, like I said before, and I don't think it has to be just living in a violent environment. I think music can heal the soul.
Mm,
So if you're able to just remove yourself from an environment that maybe causes you a little bit of anxiety, but you want to be with the crew, or you want to try to fit in, but you feel more comfortable creating at home by yourself. I
yeah.
say go create at home by yourself, because that will give you the confidence to go out and then make the life that you want, instead of trying to fit into a life that's already there. So the creative elements for me, being music, and music being my first and still my main love. um, but then film, and then helping others, to me, that's a big part of my life now, is with my agency. But for me, I think that it's really important to let not only the youth, but just people in general, if you played guitar 30 years ago and you loved it, but you stopped because you had to raise a family, and you had to work and you couldn't really go back to it, pick it up.
Mm,
It up on a Sunday afternoon and strum a couple of chords and learn some songs, because it really does elevates an individual spiritually, physically, mentally, and it's really so important. So for me, the creative part, it's the only reason I'm sitting here right now having this conversation with you, is because of that, because of my creative, whatever God-given creative abilities.
yes, I mean, and John, was it music that came first
Yes.
before? Okay, And were you in a band, or maybe, oh, I forget the band that you were in?
Hmm.
Um,
Glass of No.
yes. So performing as a musician and an actor and a filmmaker, you're multi-talented is the word I was trying to say before.
Okay.
Um, so it was so with that in mind, you're also some of your films is en route as well, right? You were
I
doing
was in a
some
film called En Route.
en
Yeah, yeah.
route. Wow, you have such an impressive resume. I mean, and and congratulations on your agency, by the way. I wanted to say that before,
Thank
but tell us about your acting. I want to talk a little bit about that. How
you.
did that?
Yeah, I got involved. I had a band, and the band was
Mhm.
doing well, and then things changed there. I think I talked about this before. Maybe we might have talked when you, because you were kind enough to be on my show as well, which I appreciated. But I might have talked about it before, where we had lost a member of our band
Mm.
tragically, and that kind of ended that for us. And we tried to regroup, but we couldn't. And I've always loved film, and film and music really go well together. They really complement each other. Music can be very cinematic in the mind, and then a film with music can really bring out the emotions of a character. So I love those two together. So I knew someday I would go into film. And after the band dismantled, I immediately started working with an acting coach and just started working for about a year because I was terrified to go on any auditions. So it took me a year of just working with a wonderful acting coach in New York named Ruth Colorman, and I worked with her for that year. And finally, I went out and I started auditioning. And I always make the joke about how there must have been a shortage of short Puerto Rican actors in New York because I got booked a lot, and I started working, and I started enough work. It wasn't Hollywood and it wasn't big time stuff, but it was enough work that I realized, hey, maybe I have something here. Maybe I can do something. And as I progressed in that, and I had some big auditions for, HBO and some big things like
Wow.
that. I realized that I also like behind the camera and writing and telling stories as a storyteller. As a songwriter, also, you are a storyteller. That is what you do with music. And so I started kind of looking behind the scenes. So whenever I was on a film set, whether I was doing background or I had a small role or whatever role I had, I was always looking at the directors and seeing what they were doing and seeing what the assistant directors were doing and the script supervisors and just seeing what everybody on set was doing. And I started studying that. And then one day I just decided to start writing a script. I called up a couple of actor friends of mine and a camera person friend of mine, and I said, I got the script. I don't know if you guys want to shoot it. And they said, yeah, let's shoot it. Send it to them. We shot it, and that became a film called The Coffee List. And The Coffee List went on to do a lot of film festivals all over the place, and it did really, really well. The film En Route was actually the guy that was also on The Coffee List, and that film won a lot of things in Massachusetts, like film festivals, and I got a couple of accolades from that as well, which was fun. But then I got interested in that part of it, the film, the behind the scenes, the actual filmmaking process. And I've been doing that now since 2000, I guess, since 2007,
Wow.
8.
That's
Yeah, and it's been great, and I just had a film last year go to the Manhattan Film Festival, the Tennessee International Film Festival, and a few other, the Phoenix Film Festival, a bunch of festivals across the country. And that film is called "And on That Day," and that will have a few more festivals on that one. And then after that one, I'll put that one out onto like the social channels, and then I'll start my next one.
how do you keep up, John? I mean, you
Yeah,
must. You love what you do, and
this is
in the band, I was
my,
going to
my
say,
book.
yeah, well, that too. But it's just amazing. You love what you do, and it's not easy. You have to love
You have
it.
to love it.
Yes.
That's what I always say because, and I hear Steve Jobs had a perfect analogy of this, and he said that if you have to love it because any sane person would give up.
Yeah.
you know, you have to love what you're doing because if you knew what it took, you wouldn't do it because it's just crazy. It's just
Yes.
you're working 100 hours a week, sometimes for no money at all. Sometimes you're paying. Sometimes I pay for films to make my films and then to put them out, and then later on, I'll get hired for something. And that's what I tell a lot of young people is that the actor Jason Alexander from Seinfeld, he
Oh,
had a great thing that he talked about it. He said, and I use this a lot also because I think he's spot on, that the time when actors could be just an actor, I think those days are over.
mm,
And he talked
yes.
about you have to now learn how to write, learn how to direct, learn how to use a camera, learn how to light a scene, learn how to do all these things, because those days of sitting at home waiting for your agent to call, you may wait a long time. But if you're at least out there doing something, you're working, you're giving yourself the job, not you have the job. Then later on, you put the film out there, and maybe by the grace of God or by by whatever luck or whatever you want to call it, someone's going to see your work and they're going to say, hey, you know what? I kind of like what this person is doing. Maybe let's give them a call and bring them in on this project, and then you may get an opportunity that you never would have had you not gone on and just done your own work. I think that's really an important thing to look at when you're in film, in anything, in any kind of create, just make the work.
Yes, you learn it by doing, right? And
Absolutely.
no,
Absolutely.
I love that. And thank you for sharing. And I just wanted to note the band was called Glass of No, right?
Yes.
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 Um,
KNOW, like knowledge. We were sort of like political. I don't want to say political because that's not, especially in today's climate, is not even a thing. But it was more of very, very self-aware band. We talked a
mhm.
lot about what was happening on the planet, but we didn't have a political side. There was none of that back then. This was a long time ago. This was like, we're talking about the 90s.
It's, I mean, it's amazing. I want to turn to, and congratulations on your hosting with George, right?
Yes, George.
Um,
Yes, yes,
Artist Blueprint. I
yes.
mean, I love it. Like it's so. Tell us from counterparts, right, to
Mhm.
Artist Blueprint.
Yeah, it started out. George it started out kind of funny. I was doing an interview show on my own, and it happened during the lockdowns. Obviously, everybody was home, and I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to sit at home by doing nothing. I said, I got the internet, so I said, let me call up all my friends, film actor friends, musician friends, and interview them. Just do a little interview show. So I did that, and then he called me up one day. He said, we should do something, and George is my cousin, so we grew up together. We were in a band together. He was the first drummer I ever played with. I was the first guitarist he ever played with. We grew up. We're like brothers. And so we also were very like minded as far as nutrition and growing up in the Bronx and that kind of viewpoint. So he called me one day. He said, we should do a show together. And I said, all right, that sounds like a good idea. What should we do it about? So we had all these ideas, and we were both nerds about Star Trek. So he said, why don't we do a show about Star Trek? And we called it Counterparts because we also love the band Rush, and the
Ah,
band Rush has an album called Counterparts. And I thought the word counterparts kind of means it's kind of things that are similar but slightly different. And I thought that might work with our concept. So we ended up doing about 15 episodes of a Star Trek themed podcast. And this is what I tell people also who are doing podcasts. You never know the direction of where it's going to go until you start doing it.
hmm.
You start realizing that, oh, I'm talking more about this, and it may be cooking. I'm talking a lot about cooking. Oh, I love cooking. I didn't realize how much I love cooking. I talk about it all the time. So that may be a direction. For us, it had to do with life adventures and life lessons. And so every time we would do an episode of Star Trek, we would go into this life stuff, life motivational things, and not being on a soapbox, but just about our own experiences. And then we thought, we'll switch it to just talk about more about actual artists, what they go through emotionally and trying to survive in this industry. And
Hmm.
so we did that for a few years. And then recently we started the Artist Blueprint because we realized what we're doing is we're creating a blueprint for artists that they can come into our show, they can watch our show, and they can leave with a tool that they can apply to their art, to their lives, that will help them. And and we have artists on the show. You know, we've had Steve Smith on our show, who's the drummer for Journey. We had Kenny Aronoff on our show, who's a legendary drummer who's played with, you know, Paul McCartney and Ringo and all those guys, and he's just a legend. We've had on Oba Babatunde, who's a Grammy Award winning performer, a Tony. He's also an Emmy winner. He's a great overall actor. So he was on the show. We've had a lot of really great guests, and each one of them brings to the table their experience, you know, and
Mm.
it's really a blueprint. It's their blueprint, you know, and so people that, you know, artists that come onto our show, or anyone really, can come in and get this the way they navigated it. And it's not for everyone, but you can pick and choose things that they did that you like, that, oh, maybe I can try this. I like that he did this, or I like that she said this, or whatever. And we kind of just created the show based on that. And then George and I always have shows on our on just George and I, you know, where we talk about subjects about whatever. Like tonight, we're doing our show tonight, and tonight our show is going to be about Dolly Parton, because
Nice.
I live in Tennessee, and she's like a really big part of Tennessee. I mean, she's like she's humongous here. She's very famous, but she's worldly famous. And we thought, you know, why don't we do a show about her? You know, we were talking about her at one of the episodes in the past. So we kind of have a little bit of freedom to talk about these things, and then we bring our own experiences to the table as well. And so that's the Artist Blueprint that we do now every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I guess 5 p.m. where you are. But yeah, it's just a great show, and just really a great opportunity for us to explore our what we've learned, to be able to regurgitate it and give it out to people again, and to really help people, which is really what the show is about.
Oh, that's wonderful. And people want to be a guest or reach out. Where can
Yes,
they go?
we're always looking for guests. You know, we obviously we have we have guests lined up that, you know, we've been trying to get their schedules in order. But you know, anyone that wants to email me, they can email me at john at jhstalentmanagement.com. You can also go to jhstalentmanagement.com and just send me a message through the website, and just let me know what you do and what your art is, and what, you know, a resume. And, you know, I'd love to have you on the show, and it's always a great opportunity. It's a blessing for us for to have these guests on. You know what I mean? The fact that we get people now, we have a couple of PR agencies that, you know, we work with, that send us guests and stuff. And for me, that's just such a blessing to be able to work with that, and to be able to have that opportunity to hear their stories in their journey, and to add to the blueprint. You know,
Yes.
it's a
No,
wonderful thing.
I love the title. And tell us more about your agency.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, one of the things that I think, when I was in New Jersey and in New York, I was always helping artists, and I managed a couple of bands, and really a learning experience. You know, I didn't thrive in that. I did a lot of learning, and I didn't do well because I think I didn't understand a lot of the business side of it, the technical business side of
Mm.
it. So I went back and started really studying that business side of it, and really communicating to artists the way artists deserve to be communicated to, right? You know, artists get a bum rap sometimes, and they get treated pretty crappy, unfortunately, you know. So I kind of like pulled it back, and I said, okay, let me just work with artists this way. And then I worked with a record label for a couple of years, and had some great talent there. And I learned a lot during those years, of what to do and what not to do, and how to communicate properly, and all that. And then COVID hit. And then I just decided, you know, I'm going to start continuing to help artists, you know, when I get to Nashville, because I decided to move to Nashville in 2021, pretty much 2020. At the end of 2020, we had decided already. And we finally got here in July of 2021, and I started working on trying to figure out what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. And then, luckily, I met a gentleman here. His name is Brian Pierce. He's a wonderful guy. He's got kids the same age as my kids, so they play together a lot. And we were able, and he's actually a very, very educated business person. Knows a lot about SEOs and Google listings and websites and pages and all the stuff that I know about this much about. Not a lot. And so he brought, and the LLC and the building, the banking and all that stuff, he just brought that to the table. And so I was telling him my idea, and I kept telling him this idea that I have about this agency. And finally, he just said, you know what? Why don't you just do it already? And I said, I'll come in, let's do it together. And as soon as he said that, it was like, wow, yes, that really, I identify with that. It really was an item that I thought this is something that I think could really, really work. I felt really good about it. So I said yes, and we started, and we've been doing really well. And it's a process. This is not it's definitely not a get rich quick scheme.
Yeah.
You have to figure it out as you go along, and you have to, but there's a lot of tools that we already have in place. And if there's an artist out there that's looking for management, that's really looking for a different way of management, we're trying, we're doing something different with JHS Talent Management. It's not the same type of system that's out there. We're going back. We're almost going back to what they had in the 40s. I don't know, back in the
Mhm.
40s, if you're history person when it comes to the golden age of television and film. Back in the 40s, they had the studios, right? The studios would sign an artist, and then the studio would actually train the artist. They would have acting classes, dancing classes, singing classes.
Oh.
They would get all these classes, and they would do all this stuff in house. And it was a good system, although it got a little corrupt, which happens. If the actor decided to have a viewpoint or want to do something, they can get shelled, and then they can't go anywhere else because they're stuck to a contract. So they're stuck there. So there were bad sides, but we took all the good stuff from what that was, and we said, let's bring artists in and help them with what they need, rather than just saying come in and just giving them, just trying to find them work, which is obviously something that we do as well. But it's not just all that. We want to make sure that we have the full artist and that we actually have a holistic approach to the artist,
Mhm.
rather than just saying you're doing this. No, you're a complete package. We want you to be a complete package. We want you to feel like you actually have everything. So your mental state, your health, your physical body, all those things are taken care of, because that's all going to affect the agency. So we go into that. Not all artists are going to go for this, and we understood that going in. We're not going to attract a lot of artists because people may think, oh, we're getting a little too involved. But an artist that we're investing time and money in is going to affect our bottom line as well as theirs. So we want to make sure that we're getting someone that we can coach and that can actually work with us and can work with others well and can take direction. If they're an actor, if you send an actor out and they can't take direction well, they're not going to get hired. That director's not going to hire them. Directors know each other. This industry is
Mhm.
not that big. It's a small industry. People think the entertainment is big. It's not. It's very small. And if you go out there, and so what happens? I put an actor out there. The actor does a poor job. The actor doesn't listen to the director or whatever. So now that director would say, well, who got us this guy? Or JHS Talent Management. He's one of the, oh, well, we're not using them anymore. And then he's going to go tell his other director friend, yeah, JHS Talent Management got me this guy and he was horrible. So that's really important when we go in. So some actors, some artists are going to come in and love this. And we've had the people that we're working right now, they love it because they feel they're taken care of and we care about them. And some of them are not. And that's part of the chance that, the risk that we're taking, but we're willing to take it.
Yeah, but you're believing in what you do and how your approach, and it's it's like fueling your whole mindset and your, a positive mindset, eating healthy and
Yeah,
performing, because it all comes in, right? To be the
100%.
best you can be.
Yeah, I mean, drinking water is sometimes is like a simple thing, but you think like I've met some people who don't drink water like ever.
Yeah.
And
And speaking of water,
right. I have my tea here. I'm like, you have to keep hydrated. It's like, I mean, and it's not just that you have to keep hydrated and health, but it's also your mind has to be clear enough to be able to do the work effectively. And
mhm,
if you're out there and you're not taking care of your body, then it's really going to affect the work, and it affects you, it affects me, it affects income, it affects the company, it affects the production, it affects so many things that we're just like, we're just not dealing with that. We're making sure that we educate our artists and let them know this is important. Now we can't dictate, we can't force, but we can definitely educate.
yes. And people are interested in joining the agency, the same email, John?
Yeah, they would probably go to the website first,
Okay.
and yeah, JHS Talent Management, and fill out the little form, and they'll answer a couple of questions there, and then that'll come to us, and then we'll review that, and then that'll get sent to me, and once it gets sent to me, I schedule a screen time just like this, with a conversation where I ask certain questions and they'll ask me questions, and we'll go back and forth for a little bit, and then we'll go to the next step after that.
Wonderful. And what about your socials?
It's
Well,
John Henry Soto at everything.
yes. Yes.
Right.
John, it was such an informative, educational interview with you, and I so enjoyed it so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on, you're awesome, and I follow your work as well, and you do such great work that it's an honor for me to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's a compliment, and I love for you to come back, John.
Absolutely, anytime,
Yes.
anytime. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Thanks for watching, everyone. And if you missed this, it'll be on the show, The Closing Act. So stay tuned, everyone. Bye for now.